bad for the guy. Hey, people make fun of me too, all my life.
Yeah.
For no reason.
Morning, probably. It was last night.
Oh, yeah.
10:30.
It's horrible. Living with, it started from parochial school in the sixth grade.
Stop your Dutch
I
brother.
put them out, I put their lights out.
Well, we just have a
One
Dutch brother.
time.
But the problem is, there's there was an accident still about an
I
hour.
don't like it.
Not farther along, there was
Bullet.
construction.
They had,
Half an hour and a half.
behind us.
No, I had it last year. But I wear it because I'm wearing a coat on. So nobody
It was on
sees the
65.
clothes that I'm wearing.
But you don't take them off the shirt,
Bowling
yeah.
Green and Louisville.
Yeah. But it's very appropriate, right?
The accident was right after
I
we
had a
got
different
past
dress laid out and I thought, oh, actually.
Buc-ee's.
Oh, I was in Hungary.
Construction from getting
I
to
don't have to wear a coat yet.
it was,
I wasn't this.
The biggest thing I don't like is
I mean, it's not too bad.
darking.
It was definitely a lot faster going down than going up.
It's darker earlier and it's a little later before it gets lighter more.
Yeah.
Cookie on,
Like my
I'll get
life
on
at the end of the day rather than the morning, but.
Cause you're not.
Well,
I don't know, see,
Yeah.
because if I, when I go to mom, I go down about 6:30. And it was like it's not.
Oh, you mean in the morning? you're going
At night,
6:30?
no, at night,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. That's why.
Especially on a overcast day.
Yeah.
Next month or two, we gotta look at the stuff, make sure that stuff does, like, stuff goes where it's supposed to go.
Hey, Dan, your heart is ticking. Does that mean there's a bomb in there?
Yeah.
Needs to oil his wagon.
How you doing, Donna?
or chair.
I'm getting
It's
there.
sneak up on
It's
it.
a long process.
Yeah,
Whole idea.
still tired.
People stand in the hallway and
I
talk.
still don't have my energy back.
Yeah.
Even now,
I don't have to
just
ask.
And
because
some
I
of
have
it,
to walk with
I
a cane.
tire very easily.
Exactly.
He said it's gonna take.
Well, it's time to get started here. A little bit of a
Bring
late
one
start.
vitamins to help you.
That's the back.
Yeah. Maybe a
Brian,
bonus.
could you, oh, sorry, am I interrupting?
No,
Could you do our prayer, please?
yes. Let's pray. Father God, we thank you so much for a beautiful Lord's Day morning. We're excited to be here and learn more about you. And Father, we ask especially for the kids' classes that they'll be able to listen this morning and be with the teachers. And Father, we just pray that you be with those who are maybe on the road right now. We thank you so much for Jesus, and we pray this in his name. Amen.
Thank you, Brian. We certainly have been having beautiful weather this week, that's for sure.
Good morning, Mary Jo.
Good.
We're in Genesis chapter 46. Genesis chapter 46. We've kind of reached another transition point here. Jacob now has found out that his son is alive, Joseph, and they're beginning their transition. The brothers, the 10 brothers, 11 brothers, came back to Canaan to retrieve their father, to take them down to Egypt, with an invitation from Joseph and from Pharaoh eventually. And we'll get to that when we get to that later on in the chapter. But I'm going to read verses 1 through 4, just to start things off, and then we'll begin discussing some of those items there. Chapter 46, verses 1 through 4. So Israel set out with all that was his, and when he reached Beersheba, he offered sacrifices to God of his father Isaac. And God spoke to Israel in a vision at night and said, Jacob, Jacob. Here I am, he replied. I am God, the God of your father, he said. Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for I will make you into a great nation there. I will go down to Egypt with you, and I will surely bring you back again, and Joseph's own hand will close your eyes. So, just out of curiosity, there's two phrases in these first 4 verses that's repeated, some of them hundreds of times, in the scriptures. Any guesses to which phrases here in this first 4 verses that is repeated many, many times throughout all of scripture? Any guesses?
Make it a great nation.
That's in there quite a bit, but there's others that are even more than that.
I am God is one.
I am God of your fathers. That's one of them. That is said a lot. It's estimated more than 70 times by one person that said that phrase is in there. But there's one that's even more than that, a lot more.
I'll make you a great nation.
Well, that's the one that was already mentioned.
Probably here am I.
I don't know about that one. It might be surprising, I guess, maybe. Fear not. Hundreds of times. That phrase is from the beginning of the Bible to the end of the Bible, where God says, fear not. And there was debates that sometimes it may run up to 300 some say maybe a little 100 and something. Either way, it's a lot. So those two phrases, fear not, and I am the God of your fathers, are mentioned a lot throughout the entire Bible. So those are very prominent verses. Why does God make a point to say fear not hundreds of times?
Because we're human and we're worrywarts.
Oh boy, I don't think you could have put that any better. We are worrywarts.
Well, we're trying to control it ultimately.
Yeah. So God has to make a special point to reassure us many, many, many times, over and over again, because there's that fine line between fearing the Lord and loving the Lord, and He's trying to constantly, deal with that issue. So it's important. So also too, as we read these verses here, where does he go to? When he leaves Canaan, he heads to what area? What district? I think it's a city, actually.
I would debate that a little bit with that fear thing. It's not really the worry words. This was a legitimate fear. And there's legitimate fears that we face.
Oh, sure.
And especially if we're trying to follow God, they're probably really legitimate.
Mm-hmm.
And he's saying, hey, I'll be with you, even though this is a dangerous situation.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. I think you're right. In this particular spot, there's
It's probably
especially.
a little bit of both, but.
Yeah, I think in this spot, though, you're right. It's especially important that he did say that here for this occasion. Because Jacob, for sure, was probably a little fearful when he found out he was going to Egypt, because his father, Isaac, was forbidden to go to Egypt. Now, Abraham did go down there once during the famine, but he remembered that from his dad, that they weren't allowed to go to Egypt. So he was probably concerned, going down to Egypt, and there was a lot of problems in going to Egypt, and they knew that. So, but overall, though, I think Deb's also right in that.
I'm not saying she's wrong, I'm just saying.
I know.
There's another piece to it.
Yeah, there's two pieces to it. So, also too, what do we know about Beersheba? It's been brought up a few times already in Scripture in the book of Genesis. From a geographical viewpoint, where is Beersheba on the map?
It's like the southern boundary of the promised land.
It is.
The south.
Exactly. It's the southernmost region of the land of Canaan that you can be in, and after that, you're heading right into Egypt from that point on. So it is really far south in the promised land. Also, too, Abraham and Isaac both lived there at one time or another, back in Genesis 22, and I can't remember if I had the other one written down. Might be 22 and 26 of Genesis. Abraham lived there, Isaac lived there, and Isaac also built something there that may have a point in this particular occasion. Isaac built an actual altar there to worship the Lord, and it's speculated that that's probably what Jacob was worshiping at when he got there, was his father's altar that he had built there when he was probably much younger than that. So, this is also interesting in that it's a new turning point in the life of Jacob to go here to. If you remember correctly, in the past, back in Genesis, I think it was 28, Jacob had his first vision from God. That was in Peniel, Piel, I think it was. It was on the first night that he was getting ready to leave the land of Canaan and get his wife up in the northern region of Haran. So that's the first time God appeared to him in a dream. It's believed that, there was a listing there, and I didn't write down all the scriptures, but it's believed that God spoke to Jacob 8 different times in his life that we know of. So that's a lot of instances where God did that. It's over a 40-year span of time that God has spoken either through a dream or verbally to Jacob about that. Abraham, when he was in Beersheba, also, that's the place where he planted that tamarisk tree that we talked about a long time ago, that had some religious value to it, and that he wanted to do that. So this is a very memorable location. Also, too, there's kind of a very important, maybe even emotional statement in these verses that I'm sure that really struck the heart of Jacob. What verse do you think I'm thinking of?
Joseph will close his eyes. Joseph will close his eyes.
That's it. That was a very, very emotional issue for Jacob, and that was he was going to close his eyes. What does that mean?
Put him to sleep, die.
Huh?
Put him to sleep, he's gonna die.
Yeah, whenever in other words, he was gonna be there till the day he died. And there's other phrases throughout history that people have mentioned. Somebody mentioned one time when I was reading that they talked about placing nickels on eyes was kind of similar to that. And there was even a joke that if you really wanted to insult somebody, you say they were a thief, they'd even steal the nickel off the eyes of a dead man. So that was kind of like a joke back in early America, that people did that.
Jeff, the other thing that's kind of interesting here is he starts referring to him as Israel again instead of Jacob. And he kind of jumps back and forth a lot.
It does.
But it does seem like there's some connotation with his ability, his willingness to follow God. Seems to kind of, but again, this is written to the Israelites, so that was another important thing. This was written by Moses to Israel, so he needed to tie Israel in.
He did, and I think that's, there's a lot of truth to that, because in reality, he's really not just speaking to Jacob here. He's speaking to the whole nation of Israel, and you really wouldn't call them a nation at this point, because there are only 70 people in the family. You might call them a clan, which is a designation that means it's much larger than just a family. There's a lot of people in the group, but he wasn't saying this just for Jacob's benefit alone. It is partly for Jacob, but there's other reasons why a lot of the things he was saying here affected the entire nation and not just Jacob. So also I'm gonna hit a certain point here too. I gotta get my notes here to the right page. This last phrase here, he says, verse 4, he says, I will go down to Egypt with you, and I'll surely bring you back again. That phrase right there, has that been spoken before in the book of Genesis? It's a promise. And what's the promise from God?
I will be with you.
I will be with you. Is that phrase just been given to Jacob, or has he said it to other people in the family?
Abraham, for sure.
Yeah, so turn over to Genesis 15. I'm going to get into a little bit of history here. And I think it's really important at this point to bring this up because so much of what has happened to Jacob and his family, they had no idea what God was up to. He had huge plans, God did, that went back hundreds of years, and all these plans are working out according to his will, and I'm sure the whole family had no idea what was going on here, but it was all predicted from the beginning, when God first started speaking to Abraham. And in chapter 15, it actually was first brought up in Genesis 12, but there's some few things here in 15 where he restates it again. And I'm going to start in verse 12 of chapter 15 of Genesis. As the sun was setting, Abraham fell into a deep sleep, and a thick darkness, dreadful darkness, came over him. Then the Lord said to him, "Know for certain that your descendants will be strangers in a country not their own. They will be enslaved and mistreated 400 years. But I will punish the nation they serve as slaves, and afterwards they will come out with great possessions. You, however, will go to your fathers in peace and be buried at a good old age. In the 4th generation of your descendants will come back here, for the sin of the Amorites has not yet reached its full measure." When the sun had set and darkness had fallen, a smoking pot, a blazing torch appeared and passed between the pieces. And on that day the Lord made a covenant with Abraham and said to your descendants, "I will give this land from the river of Egypt to the great river of the Euphrates." So from the very beginning of Abraham and his mission, that remember he had already sent him here from Ur of the Chaldean region to this land, and he's making a promise to them, which is reiterated again to Jacob already, that he was going to give him this land of Canaan. But before that, he's given a history of hundreds of years into the future. And I mean hundreds. God has all this all planned out. Notice he even says, "Know for certain." And God is basically telling them, this is going to happen. They were going to be a stranger in a country not their own. And what country was that, you think? Where they'd be enslaved for 400 years? That's a tough question, isn't it? Egypt. Yeah, it's going to be Egypt. And he says they're going to be slaves and mistreated. I mean, that's the book of Exodus right there, explaining how all this is going to happen in time. Is Abraham going to see any of this? No, he says you're going to go your way in peace and you'll die at a good old age. But this is for your descendants later on, which are part of his family. Also in verse 16 too, we can make a point here then, why doesn't God just do it right now? Why doesn't he just give them the land of Canaan right now?
Free will.
Okay, free will.
Just tell him the nation he wants to destroy isn't ready to be destroyed.
What are you saying? Where'd you get that from?
Said it right in there, didn't it?
What does it say?
Time's not right or something like that. I don't know.
You're close. This is an interesting statement, and this shows you how God sees the future. He says, verse 16, "For the sin of the Amorites has not yet reached its full measure." In other words, the Amorites are wicked. Amorites are the Canaanites. They're wicked, but it hasn't reached its full measure. What does that mean? As far as God's decisions on how he does things?
It's pretty smart.
But, I don't want to say a timeline, but they're wicked, and he sees it, I think he's giving them time to change it.
I think that's true. You can see the patience of God in this, and the fact that they're wicked. There's a lot of nations that are wicked, but some are extremely wicked, and God has destroyed nations before. What did he do with Sodom and Gomorrah? I mean, the great flood. There's times where God says, enough. And he's kind of hinting here that in the future, The Amorites are gonna hit a point where they become so wicked, God can't deal with it anymore. And isn't it an odd coincidence? It's the same time that they come out of Egypt, after the 400 years of slavery. The two coincide and come together at the same point in the historical line. So this is interesting how all this is working out.
Jeff,
Yes,
so later in Kings, though, he uses these nations to basically annihilate other nations, and then he deals directly with them.
yeah,
So he uses them to, for his bigger plan, but then they still have judgment.
yeah.
Like, for example, Nineveh, the perfect example is Nineveh. And look how far ago he saved Nineveh. Nineveh was the capital of Assyria, which was eventually, then they took over the northern kingdom. That took a lot of years for all that to play out, but remember, God was gonna destroy Nineveh. Jonah wanted to destroy Nineveh. And God said, no, we're not gonna destroy Nineveh because I need them 1,500 years from now to come in and, or 2,000, I don't, a long time.
It wasn't that long.
It was a long time.
Yeah, because,
Maybe 1,000, but it was a long.
well, either way, it
was a lot.
eventually happened, but, you can see how God plans things out. And I made this point here a few weeks back too. God uses the wickedness of human beings to also accomplish his will, as well as the goodness that people who are obedient to him, and he accomplishes his will through both methods, which is sometimes really hard to wrap your head around, but he does absolutely use both methods in when he tries to accomplish his will throughout the timeline of history. And I made the point here too, why doesn't he make Abraham, this land, to take possession of the land of Canaan right now? Why can't he do that? It's not a deep question, it's pretty easy. How big is the nation of
Before he gave
Israel?
the Ten Commandments to,
Well, that's way later on. That's way
they
later on.
destroyed all those people, even Aaron helping to build a calf,
Yeah, we're talking about Abraham right now, though. This is way earlier.
about the same thing.
Why doesn't God say, Abraham, you're the king of Canaan right now?
Because it was prophesied that they were gonna serve 400 years.
That's true. That is true
That
too.
prophecy would have come true.
But there's also a bigger
Well,
problem.
They had to come in and kill all the Canaanites. So
Okay.
there has to be a lot more of them.
Okay, here we are.
And
How many people are in the family now?
70 or something. 70.
Well, there, but right here now with Abraham,
Enough.
it's one.
Oh.
Abraham's the only one. It's not, it starts, that's how it starts out, is one man and one woman, and they're hardly gonna be able to conquer the land of Canaan with one man and one woman. God knew that. That was all part of the plan. And as time goes on, by the time we get to Genesis 44, the family has grown from 2 to,
Millions.
well, that's,
Oh, in Exodus, when they're coming back.
yeah, in Exodus, it's millions, yeah, we'll get to that, but how many is in Genesis 44, at this point where we're at now, how many are in the family?
100 and something, 40, 50 something.
Well, it's actually
It
listed
says somewhere,
as
it says-
70.
70.
The Septuagint has a different number, but we'll talk about that later. But there's 70 people in the family at this point. Are they a nation at this point? No, they're, like I said before, they're more like a clan. They're not a nation. And they're certainly not capable of conquering Canaan on their own as a nation. But they needed protection. Okay, why do they need protection? Because at this point, they are very vulnerable in many different ways. Back in Genesis chapter 34, if you turn to there now, we're going to talk about this issue of protection that God has to do for these people, and there's a good reason for it. The Israelites have to be protected from something that would overwhelm them in time. God knew it, so he made plans to fix it. And he knew it was gonna happen, and this is all planned out. In chapter 34 of Genesis, beginning in verse 8, 8 through 10. But Hamor said to them, my son Shechem has his heart set on your daughter, that's Dinah. Please give her to him as his wife. Intermarry with us. Give us your daughters and take our daughters for yourselves. You can settle among us, and the land is open to you. Live in it, trade in it, and acquire property in it. Skipping over to verse 20. So Hamor and his son Shechem went to the gate of their city to speak to their fellow townsmen. These men are friendly towards us. They said, let us live in our land and trade in it. The land has plenty of room for them. We can marry their daughters and they can marry ours, but the men will consent to live with us as one people, only on the condition that our males be circumcised as they themselves are. Won't their livestock, their property, and all their animals become ours? So let us give our consent to them, and they will settle among us. What's the problem here? There is a problem, a big problem. This is Jacob coming back from obtaining his wife. He's heading down south now, heading towards further into Canaan, and they stop on the way in the city of Shechem. And what happens right away?
Dinah leaves and goes and gets.
Yes, the daughter of Leah, I believe it was, gets raped, and the chieftain's son wants to marry her and have her as his wife, and they got bigger plans than that, don't they? What do they want to do besides just having this one marriage?
Take all their livestock, take all their riches.
Yeah, they want to intermarry with the Israelites. The Israelites can intermarry. Their culture, their economies are going to merge together. Is that a problem? In God's eyes, is that a problem? A big problem? Little problem?
It's a big problem, they're idolaters.
Yeah, this is a huge problem. This was not God's intention. How does the situation end? How do they get out of there?
The two brothers end up murdering everybody.
Yeah.
So they had to flee.
Was it God's will that they murder these people? Did they do that on their own? They did. But did God use that?
Yeah, because it made them get away from everything.
Yeah. God could have done it in all kinds of different ways. But he knew these brothers, what they were like, and they did this, and he knew they were gonna do it, and he let it play out, and in the long run, it got them out of Shechem. And so they could head further south and not have to be intermarrying with that particular group of people, because we already know, right away, right after this, there's a specific chapter. Who does Judah marry? The son of Leah, the son of Jacob. Who does he marry? Was she a Jew? No. He married a Canaanite woman, didn't he? And Simeon also married a Canaanite woman too. So, 2 of the 12 brothers, right off the bat, have already married Canaanite women. So that's a big problem there too. And as time plays out, we'll see how that works out too. So, God has to keep them spiritually pure, or they're going to just be incorporated right into all these nations. And we can see how that happened throughout history. There's times when they fall right into the trap, and there's other times when they stay strong. We can see that through the book of Kings, especially with the different nations there. So God has to get them out of there and take them to a place where the temptation to intermarry and the temptation to sin in their idolatrous ways, how's God going to do that? What's his plan for the future? We sort of really already discussed it. How does God fix this situation?
Makes them slaves.
Well, eventually, but before that, come a little further, closer to this time frame. What does he do? Joseph is in Egypt. How did he get there? God put him there, didn't he? He made him prime minister of Egypt, and for a very specific reason. And God decided he was going to have a family. Would the Israelites voluntarily just up and move to Egypt on their own?
No,
Not in a million years.
no.
So how does God get them down there? Because God does want them down there. The famine. So God used a famine to get Joseph in charge of Egypt and get Joseph, made it possible for the whole family to come back down out of Canaan to avoid the famine and starvation. And he brings them all back down to Egypt where he's at. Well, why does God want them in Egypt? They're pagans too. They're pagans just like the Canaanites. What's different between, Wayne knows this, what's the difference between the Canaanites and the Egyptians? You sort of brought it up last week.
I don't remember.
What's the difference in the Egyptians' attitudes towards Joseph? Remember when they were sitting at the dinner table with his brothers?
They couldn't
How were
eat
they
together.
seated?
They couldn't eat together.
Why?
He was considered like unclean or not one of them. He
Yeah.
wasn't one of them, so an outsider would be unclean to them,
Where did the Egyptians think they were descended from?
like the sun god.
Yeah, they thought they were descended from the gods, and everybody else are just like the animals of the forest. That's their attitude about the rest of the world. There is not a place where they were more racially prejudiced than anywhere else in the world at this time as the Egyptians. They couldn't stand anybody. Everybody else was lowlifes in their minds. They thought they were the children of gods themselves.
How big a deal was it that Joseph didn't sleep with Pharaoh's wife?
Yeah,
I mean, that right there would have messed up the whole
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
It looks like a little thing, but
It wasn't, yeah. So, as we can see here, do you think the Egyptians wanted to intermarry with the Israelites? Absolutely not. They were repulsed by the idea. They didn't even want them involved in their culture. Remember the Shechemites? They wanted them involved in their culture. They wanted to intermarry with them. The Egyptians are the opposite. They didn't want nothing to do with them. As a matter of fact, when they ended up moving down to Egypt, where did they move to?
Out in the country.
Kind of, yeah,
Goshen?
Goshen, which is on the far eastern side of Egypt. And it was a place where there wasn't very many Egyptians living. But it was perfect for pasture land for people who had herds and flocks and stuff like that. So God had a perfect place for the Israelites to go in the meantime to get them away so that they could develop into a real nation that was spiritually pure and not incorporated with all the idolatry of all the nations around them. And Egypt was the perfect place to go because Egypt didn't want anything to do with them either. So, and not only that, with Joseph being the prime minister, that gets them off to a great start. I mean, he's got this land all picked out. Pharaoh's on their side. They're going to be fed and taken care of. And within 400 years, Deb, how many people were there, did you say?
It was millions, like 3 million.
Yeah, it was an enormous one. There was 600,000 fighting men in the army of Israel after 400 years. And it's just interesting how all this plays out. But as time goes on, the Israelites get treated very badly by the pharaohs. They forget all about Joseph. This is in the book of Exodus. And the Amorites' sin in Canaan has finally reached its full measure. Timing-wise, here we go. God has everything all planned out. He's going to bring judgment down on them like he did with the days of Noah in the days of Sodom and Gomorrah. He's gonna end it and bring in this army of, for the most part, God-worshiping soldiers to conquer the land of Canaan and destroy the wicked people there. And also this whole story plays out throughout the whole world. The whole world was aware of what the Israelites did to the Egyptians, the most powerful nation in the world at that time, and destroyed them with the help of their God. So all the world knew about the God of the Israelite. Does Jacob and his family know anything about God's plan concerning all this? I mean, just in the last chapter, what was Jacob saying about his life? Everything's against me. Woe is me. He was in the pits of depression, and now, all of a sudden, Joseph's going to close his eyes at death. So you can see the transition here, but did they understand the whole plan that is going to be happening now over hundreds of years? Did they really get it? I don't think so. Because it's a difficult thing for them to see how this all plays out in the future, and it's not surprising because that's the way a lot of times God's plan works. It's difficult to see everything as it is planned out.
It's
So,
interesting though, at the end of his life, when he blesses his son, some of his sons, and I think some of the grandchildren, he does seem to know, I think he knows that they're going back to Canaan. I think he believes that God's going to have them go back to Canaan at some point. I don't think he would have blessed them the way he did.
yeah, there is some hints to what you're saying in the blessings. When we get to that, we're actually going to talk about that a little bit too. So
You can't forget too, Mike Lindell was part of this because.
what's that?
He's a cotton, Mike Lindell's, he's a cotton.
Oh, gosh.
Came from Goshen, so that was all tied in.
I forgot all about that. Yeah, you're right.
He's under my pillow.
Good. All right. Let's see. Where am I? Okay. Beginning in verse 5 of chapter 46 of Genesis. Genesis 46, verse 5. Then Jacob left Beersheba, and Israel's sons took their father Jacob and their children and their wives in the carts that Pharaoh had sent to transport him. They also took with them their livestock, their possessions they had acquired in Canaan, and Jacob and all his offspring went to Egypt. They took with him to Egypt his sons, his grandsons, his daughters, granddaughters, all his offspring. And these are the names of the sons of Israel, Jacob, and his descendants who went into Egypt. And all the 12 sons are listed out here. Naturally, Reuben is the firstborn of Jacob through Leah. And then it lists the sons of Reuben right after that, and we're not going to go through those names. The next in verse 10 is the sons of Simeon, and Simeon's sons are also relayed in that too. And notice also too that there's the mention of a Canaanite woman. So there was some Canaanite influence in Simeon's family, and it's specifically stated there. And the reason I'm stating that point here too is, I'm going to skip over just a little bit, go down to verse 12, after we look at Levi and his 3 sons. The sons of Judah are Onan, Shelah, Perez, and Zerah. But what happened to Er and Onan? Remember, they died because the Lord struck them down. But the other 2 were left, and one of them was Perez. And who did Perez marry? Anybody remember? He married Tamar, who later on, Perez, through Tamar, eventually, not too distant in the future, what family line is that? Yeah, it's the line of David, which is the line of Christ. So you can see here too that Tamar is never mentioned as a Canaanite. And that's why I don't think that Tamar was a Canaanite, even though he had earlier married a Canaanite woman, Judah, but his wife died. So I think Tamar was a Jewish woman, because otherwise it would have said so, I think, because it mentions the other Canaanite wife up there. And then it goes on down to 13, Ishkar, his sons, keeps going on and on through all the family lines. Also make note of this too, that there's, I think, 8 different women mentioned in the family lines here. But the wives of the sons of the 12 are not counted in the census. So the 12 sons are mentioned, their sons are mentioned, but the sons' wives are not counted in the census per se, other than maybe a few of them may have been, and that may have been, I think, Leah, Rachel, and the 2 other women that he was married to. And I think even Joseph's wife may have been mentioned, who was from Egypt. So we could see here too that this family, when you count them all up, it equals 70 people in the family from this count. But there's a contradiction in the book of Acts, chapter 7, verse 14, with Stephen. How many does Stephen say were in the family? This is a point people try to bring up sometimes. He named 75. Why is there one 70 and the other one 75? Well, the reason is because Stephen's count came from the I have a hard time saying this word, the Septuagint. It was the Hebrew Bible. I can't say the word. So, in that particular Bible, which was translated, I think, 200 years before Christ, there's listed as 75, and I think they counted Joseph's other sons that were born to him, and they included them into that list, and that's how they got 75. So is it a contradiction? No. It's just a difference in how many people you actually count in the list.
Hey Jeff, real quick too, Simeon is interesting because he had a Canaanite wife, and they didn't actually inherit the territory in the promised land.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there was a little bit of a, and when he wrote this to Moses, he read this at some point, maybe that's why, I don't know.
Yeah. And there's some symbolic measure to here too. Notice it took 215 years to grow from one man, Abraham, to a family of 70. 215 years to go from 1 to 70. But what's interesting about this after that, in another 400 years, it went to well over to 2 to 3 million. So the family exploded in growth when they get to Egypt, and for good reason. So, and what's interesting about this too, there's a lot of talk that the number 70 is a symbolic number. It has religious implications. The number 7 is symbolic. And when you get into Revelation too, you'll find that number 7 is symbolic of holy completeness. Holy completeness is the number 7. The number 10 is worldly completeness. You put those two together, and you end up with a combination of both spiritual and worldly number. 70 is that. So the Bible mentions there are 70 nations of the world in Genesis 10. There's 70 elders in Numbers 11:16. There's 70 in captivity, 70 years in captivity in Babylon as punishment to Israel. There's 70 weeks to finish transgression in Daniel 9. There's 70 translators that produced that Septuagint. There's in the Sanhedrin later on, there was 70 members in the Sanhedrin. Jesus sends out the 70 witnesses to his kingdom and preach, and that was debatable too. There's 70 or 72. The days of years for a full life mentioned in Psalm 90 are 70, which is 70. There's 70 founders of the nation of Israel who went into Egypt. So there's a lot of symbolism behind the number 70. And a lot of times people think, what's a big deal? Well, in the Bible it is a big deal. numbers have very definite meaning, and they're played out on purpose by God to reach certain numbers, because they're significant. It helps people remember how significant things are. We're on time. Any final thoughts or questions? Okay, we'll see you next week, Lord willing.
Jeff. Take him out of that war press, not married to press. Sound right. War press. It wasn't married to press.
Did I say that? Okay, you're right. She had two sons, Perez and,
I did a good one.
yeah, you're right.
I got it somewhere. Oh, Zera. Her second son was Scarlet Thread, Zera, was the other son, Perez's brother.
Right,
Twins.
yeah,
Perez came out first.
right.
But you know, the hand came out, right, didn't the hand come out, and there was
Yes,
a
they
thread
drew
around
back
it?
and they,
But she was the one that married the oldest brother, and he died, and then
Am I forgetting? Am I
children were
No, I didn't.
away.
that's what Judah,
You're
And then
before.
put you on the road,
right.
and then she wore Perez.
Yeah, you're before.
I'm
me,
the
the one.
14th.
And Ephraim did become more prominent in history.
Yeah,
Not necessarily his letter and morals and values, but he did become more prominent than the other twins. Because he was, his prosperity was mostly in the northern kingdoms.